Hello and welcome to the Outdoorsy Educator Podcast, a place for conversation about travel, adventure, life lessons, and making the most out of each and every day. I'm your host, Alasdair Green, and each week I will have a conversation with someone who will not only inspire us all, but give us an insight into living life to its fullest. But before we get started, a quick word from our sponsor, Whole Earth Provision Company. Since 1970, Whole Earth Provision Company has been the Texas outfitter for side quests big and small. Whether you're gearing up for the open road, chasing a trailhead, or hunting for that just right gift, they have got you covered. Think durable clothing, shoes that will actually go the distance, gear that's road trip ready, and books, puzzles, and toys that will spark wonder at every age. You'll find Whole Earth in Dallas, Austin, Houston, and San Antonio, or anytime online at wholeearthprovision.com. And hey, because you're rolling with the Outdoorsy Educator podcast, here's a little extra love. Use the code OutdoorsｙEDU for 20% off your next adventure at Whole Earth. It is a true honour to introduce this week's guest, Will Akuna Robinson. A proud US Army veteran, Akuna found healing and a true sense of home on the trail. His journey led him to an incredible milestone, becoming the first black man to earn the title of a Triple Crowner, completing the Appalachian Trail, the Pacific Crest Trail, and the Continental Divide Trail. But Akuna's story does not stop with his own footsteps. His passions now fuel a greater mission, making the outdoors more accessible, welcoming, and inclusive for all. Akuna, welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Yeah, doing very well. We're both in a similar area, which I didn't realize. And the weather's starting to cool off. Fall is around the corner, which is where I tend to thrive when it comes to being in the outdoors and hiking. This 90 degree plus weather, I'm ready for it to end.
Oh yeah, see, we're originally from Louisiana, so the heat and humidity is right up my alley.
Right. And being from Scotland, we tend to melt when it gets above 70,
Oh
75
yeah,
degrees. So this is a struggle.
definitely.
Awesome. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, how the name Akuna came about, a little bit about your story.
You know, I'm a Kuna. I'm a long distance hiker. I'm a disabled veteran. I got into hiking as a way to help myself with PTSD. And without ever hiking before, I jumped in the deep end and started with the hike of the Pacific Crest Trail back in 2016. Though I didn't know what I was doing, didn't have a lot of experience. When people would ask me, what are you going to do about the desert? It's a dry section. It's like, I'm not going to worry about that. We'll figure it out. What are you going to do about the Sierras? Like, I have 702 miles to figure that out. And this
Right.
went on and on and on. So eventually they're like, yo, you're just not going to worry about anything out here, are you? It's like, no, the only thing I need to know is I'm going in the right direction. That's it. So they started calling me No Worries, which turned into the Kuna Matata, which turned into Akuna.
I love that. And when you're talking about the Sierras and stuff, of course, we're talking about the PCT. That was the first long distance trail you did?
Yeah, that was my first long distance trail, my first hike, my first time staying in a tent other than in the military.
Right. Well, we've got a good friend, good mutual friend, Derek Lugo. It sounds like a very similar start to your, we'll call it hiking career,
Oh
that
yeah.
he had.
Oh,
Just decided to go and do it and hit the ground running and hitting it hard and a long distance hike straight away.
yeah,
Um,
definitely. Pretty much the same scenario there.
the same scenario. I love it. Well, in reading a bit about you, and you've already mentioned it, you've talked a bit about PTSD. How did you go from that sort of lead you to the outdoors? What was the
You,
link there?
a lot of people don't know it actually all started for me 13 years before I actually started hiking.
Okay.
When I was in the U.S. Army, I was deployed to Iraq in 2003. And while I was there, people would send gifts and things for soldiers. And one day a box came with books in it. And one of the books was a guidebook on the Pacific Crest Trail. So, out in Iraq, I used to read this thing every day thinking, yo, I would rather be there than here right now. One day I would love to go out there and hike this. You know, uh, After my military service, I was disabled. I had a lot of doctors telling me what I couldn't and could do physically, and my mental state wasn't in the right place. And, that carried on for like 13 years until one day when I was pretty much at my lowest point mentally, I was in my room and Wild was on TV.
Ah,
And it
yes.
reminded me of that trail I read about 13 years earlier. So, I did a quick Google search and realized, yes, this is the same trail. Yes, people still hike it all. Yes, there's two permits left 2 weeks from now. And for some reason, it's like, this is what I have to do. In order to get back to where I want to be at, I need to go on this crazy adventure. So that night I started ordering gear, didn't know what I needed, ordered way too much stuff. 2 weeks later, I was at the Southern Terminus and haven't looked back.
That's amazing. Yeah, I like to read, and I probably read 3 or 4 books a year. When I read Wild, that's the last book that I've read that like I couldn't wait to get home from work. Like
Oh yeah.
the
Oh
movie
yeah.
was great. I've really enjoyed the movie, but Cheryl Strayed's biography about I mean just an incredible, inspiring story. And then the scenery in the movie does really
Mhm.
make you just want to just get out there. I thought it was beautifully shot. Um, Now you talk about PTSD, and this is not a world I'm familiar with in the sense of I have never served, so I've not gone through that trauma of
Mhm.
PTSD. How do you feel that that relates to being in the outdoors? Did you find I mean, obviously, cure is not the word, but did you find as perhaps a coping mechanism or help you work through it? I'm not sure quite the right verbiage to use there.
You know, right to begin with, we never cure PTSD. We just learn how to better deal with it.
Right.
And for me, I think what helped me with hiking was the fact that it gave me time to kind of work on me. When we're home in our societal norms, we have, family, friends, work, your cell phone going off every 10 seconds with notifications and text messages, so you don't really get a lot of time for self-care. And that was something that I really, really needed. But getting out into the outdoors gave me the ability to work on myself more, to think some things out, to come to some conclusions on different points of my life and to be able to practice, becoming social again within a controlled environment. Because I mean, for those that don't go on long distance hikes, for a lot of us, we're kind of, say, the weirdos that don't fit into societal norms as well as other people do. So when we go to trail, we kind of find our family. So we're allowed to be a little off. We're allowed to be a little weird. We're allowed to be a little strange because everyone else is. So I was able to, practice or reintegrate myself into social situations. And that was something I couldn't do at home.
Right, and that's something again must stress. This is an outsider looking in, but it does seem to me that when people, leave the armed forces having served their time, it must be so difficult to integrate back into society. And if you didn't have the trail to help you with that, it could have been a very different story for you.
Very, very different. It's like I loved my time in the military service, but as you said, once that comes to an end, it all stops. And now you have to relearn how to be a civilian, and there is no one there to guide you. You have the veteran affairs that's going to help you with your medical situations and filing VA claims, and if you want mental health advocates to talk to, but no one teaches you how to reacclimate to not being a soldier anymore. So it's a struggle for a lot of us.
Yeah, it's something that my daughter got married earlier this year to a gentleman who is in the army. So I've been asking him questions about this, and it's been so eye-opening to me. I mean, he has friends who are veterans who served 5, 10, 15 years, and they get out and they for them, they struggle to integrate back into society and not having somebody essentially tell them what to do. Suddenly they're
I
having to make decisions that they haven't been used to making, and it's opened my eyes again as somebody who has never served to the struggle that that must bring upon a lot of people.
Definitely when you're enlisted, any problem, any issue that comes up, there is someone's job to handle that. So you just find that person and then they walk you into the right path, the right direction. As a civilian, that really doesn't exist.
Right. We have to start and make our own decisions, and we have a
Hmm.
lot of. He almost said it was the burden of choices. You have
Yeah,
too many choices in life, and
yeah.
when you're listening, it's again his words, not mine. It's kind of black and white in a lot of ways. This is what needs to be done, and
Hmm.
you just do it.
Yeah.
In fact, he is currently overseas, and I remember asking him, how are you going to get from A to B, where he was, to where he's going overseas. And this was the day before. And he was like, I've got no idea. I
Yeah.
just need to show up at the base at 4 a.m. on this day. I
Yep.
don't know if I'm flying out. I don't know if I'm getting a bus and then flying. And he wasn't worried about it because
Yeah.
that wasn't his thing to worry about.
But as long as you're enlisted, someone's going to tell you what you need to do.
Right. I found that just fascinating. And yeah, it's given me a whole new appreciation for people that not only serve, but when they come out, those who are able to integrate back into society. I had no idea until I would say this last year what a challenge that can be. Um, and certainly gives me some passion for making sure people have these services. People that have literally put their life on the line need our support and need our help. Um, when I was I can't remember if I met you or not at AT Trail Days last year or not. I know we were both there.
Mhm.
Um, Seeing various charities who were out there who were sponsoring through hikes for veterans,
Yes.
helping supply them with money. I don't know if you know of them or have ever been involved in them. I wish I could remember their name, but I just thought, what a wonderful thing.
There's a great organization that's called Warrior Hikes, and they
Okay.
sponsor a lot of veterans for trips on the AT, the PCT, the CDT. They do things like sponsor kayaking trips down the Mississippi River. This
Uh-huh.
year they did a cross-country bike ride they sponsored veterans for. My first year hiking, I actually reached out to them, but they had already made their selections for the year. But they helped me out in getting all of the gear that I needed to get out on trail. So great, great organization.
That's fantastic. Well, I'll try to find their socials, their website, and we'll link them into this episode because that's doing great work, and I'm
Yes, it
sure
is.
quite literally saving lives and giving people a new lease on life. So that's
Definitely.
great work. Um, Changing gears slightly, having a look at your website, something that's important to you is increasing diversity on the trail, or people that aren't necessarily your stereotypical front of Backpacker magazine or Men's Health
Hmm.
magazine or whatever it is, looking hikers. Um, Diversity in the outdoors is also something that's very important to me throughout my career in education. I've always worked in schools with a lot of diversity deliberately. I want to try and make sure we're providing people who've been traditionally underserved with the very best that we can. So I'd love to hear a bit more about that from you, what you've noticed on the trail, your experiences, and where you see it in the future in terms of diversity and getting different people outdoors.
When I first started hiking, I think most hikers just knew me as the black guy. There
Right.
wasn't any other, black men represented on trail. There was very low amounts of people from marginalized communities. And for a few years, I started seeing that get better and better and more and more. And say this year on trail, I mean, it was pretty much an explosion. You had people from all kind of walks of lives and backgrounds, from different races to different sexualities to different, body types and sizes. I mean, it's a beautiful thing to see that more people are feeling comfortable and safe in the outdoor community. You know, I wish I could say in the future that the outdoor industry itself would get more behind it. We did have a slight movement where it seemed like the outdoor industry was caring more about diversity and fostering it,
Hmm.
but it seemed like it only lasted maybe a year during the Black Lives Matter movements with black squares. But since then, they have fallen off on the representation and telling the stories of marginalized people in the outdoor communities. And that actually is going to start causing a lot of the participation to back off again because they're not seeing themselves represented. So I hope in the future that the outdoor industry double downs on their effort and start, displaying, representing, and sharing the stories of people from marginalized groups.
Yeah, I think I've seen some pushback to that. Why is it important to have people that look like this, whether it's skin color, whether it's size, whether it's gender? and somebody who's worked in elementary education pretty much my whole career, it
Hmm.
matters. You know, these
Definitely.
7-year-old kids need to see people that look like them, whatever that might be, represented as doctors, as architects, as actors,
Yeah.
as musicians, so they can really say, hey, you know what? If that person can do it, I can do it. And I
Yeah.
think we carry that with us, however old we get. I think it's important to go, yeah, they look
Hmm.
like me.
After
Um,
9 years of long distance hiking and 10 long distance hikes, I
mhm.
still get numerous emails from people from marginalized communities saying, I saw you, the video Meryl did of you, or I found you on Instagram or heard you in a podcast, and you made me believe that this is a possible thing. So I just reaching out to you to let you know I just completed my first long distance hike. And, that's what it's about. I mean, when you feel represented, you're more likely to get involved in these things. And when we're talking about our nature and our environment, the more people that get involved in it, the more care about it. So it's part of our conservation efforts too.
Right. I love that I see it from the elementary school point of view, and then you're seeing it way into adulthood. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
that does stay with us, that representation, whatever that looks like, truly, truly does matter. And you're right. I mean, I'm friends with several outdoors influencers that don't necessarily meet the traditional mold. And
Hmm.
excuse me, they've also talked about the fact that things have dropped off. Some of their sponsorship has just dissolved and gone away. It doesn't seem to be as important to certain brands as it used to be. And here's hoping that that will change soon, and we can bring it
I
back.
think it will change eventually. We are talking about a lot of big businesses, so their bottom line is profit
Yeah,
margin.
of course.
And, I'm sure they are seeing that profit margin drop off because they stop being as inclusive. So eventually they're going to put two and two together and come back. The question is us as marginalized people are going to allow them to get off that easy? That's really the question is going to be.
That's
So
a
we'll see.
very interesting thought. Yeah, are we? Will the marginalized communities just welcome them back when open
Yeah.
arms, when really they walked away? So it'll be
Yeah.
interesting to see.
Eventually, they'll knock back on us outdoor athletes and the outdoor influencers. And my hope is we stick to our guns and we ask for true allyship, which means a long-term commitment, not a little campaign work or a photo shoot. So I'm hoping that a lot of us will hold them to being allies, and when they come back, we negotiate long-term contracts. We make sure we foster long-term relationships. We actually get the commitment that they're that's saying they're going to make in writing. So that's what I'm hoping is the future.
Yeah, and you brought this up slightly again. We were both at PCT days, what, 2 weeks ago,
Hmm.
and I was just thinking before we got on this call, the let's see, it was the Friday night, at the was it Thunder Island,
Yeah.
the brewing with that kind of like a pre-party, and it was
Hmm.
almost, yeah. I mean, you just look around, and I love the fact that diversity in all different ways is the norm in the
Yeah.
community. You see people with all sorts of, pride, young people, old people, men, women, just everybody.
Hmm.
And it seems that in the core of the community, that acceptance is just it's everywhere. I certainly didn't see any issues whatsoever. It's a community that embraces everybody, and just such a wonderful, lovely thing. I'm hoping you've had that experience too.
Oh yeah. I would say 95% of the people I encounter have been welcoming, and friendly. And you always have that 5% of bad apples. There are some
Right.
things you can't do. I mean, if it exists within the world, if it exists within the country, it does exist in the outdoor community as well. So you do have some people that represent, all the bad things in your regular day-to-day lives, but it's a lot more limited. So for the
Right.
most part, all my experiences have been good. Just a few bad apples, but we don't let them stop us from doing the things that we want to do.
Yeah, I mean, and I've not done, my life doesn't allow me to do, long distance hikes for months. I tend to do 100 miles at a time, a couple of times a year. But I've
Yeah.
met many, many hikers and many outdoor people, and I've only had one that has made derogatory comments about disabled people. And
Hmm.
it will stay with me probably forever because of how jarring that was,
Yeah.
because I think I'd let my guard down a bit, and I forgot that
Hmm.
the hiking community, the outdoor community, is not completely insulated, like you said, from the
Yeah.
real world, the
Oh
other
yeah.
things that exist.
I would say on a long distance hike over 2,000 miles, I would have 2 to 5 different situations that came up that were kind of derogatory. But when you look at that on the grand scheme of a 2,600 mile hike over 5.5 to 6 months, that is
Right,
nothing, especially living in the southern part of the country.
right, right. Absolutely. Yeah, it exists, but hopefully to a
Hmm.
much lesser
Oh yeah.
extent. So tell me how you're involved in the outdoor industry. Are you a sponsored athlete? Do you work with companies? How are you involved?
I work with different companies. I
Right.
was a sponsor athlete for Merrill for around 8 years,
Wow.
but they're
Okay.
starting to rebuild their athlete program. So who knows? Maybe I'll be back with Merrill again at some point down the road.
Right.
But I usually just do work with companies that understand, like I said earlier, allyship is like, if you're that company that I don't know of and you contact me because you want Black History Month work, then no, I don't work with you. We
Not
need a
interested.
relationship prior to that. I need the long-term commitments. But people like Sawyer, I've done work with various different backpacking companies that were represented at PCT days, and
Right.
I kind of just do what I do. I keep hiking, and if someone wants to work with me, they pitch an idea, and we go from there.
I love it. And then you've been, obviously involved in the outdoor community for what, 15 years at this point, 10 or
Uh,
15 years.
yeah.
What would you say outside of the companies, the people that you meet, the people at PCT days, the
Hmm.
sort of the hiking community, what do you feel that they have given to you?
Man, they restore your faith in humanity. It's like
Beautiful. Hmm.
when we're at home, negative energy is everywhere. You can't turn on your news without seeing all the negative going on in the world. You can't get into your social media without all the negativity and the call out culture and the cutoff culture and all of that. But when I'm around the outdoor community, those things don't matter anymore. It's all about us being the same team, trying to accomplish the same goal as safely and as fun as possible. So we're like each other's biggest cheerleaders. And that positive energy is contagious. I mean, when you come out there, maybe you're a little afraid, maybe you're a little grumpy, but people's positive energy, you absorb it, and if you're surrounded by it, you become more positive. So I think they've increased my faith in humanity, and they help me whenever I need to remember that, hey, you can choose to go through life with a positive, outlook versus a negative one.
I love that. And that's exactly my experience. Somebody who hikes 100 miles at a time, a few times a year, a lot of the gear and stuff at like PCT days isn't really marketed for me.
Hmm.
I don't need a tent. I don't need to spend hundreds on a tent that weighs 3 ounces lighter. Because
Yeah.
in the grand scheme of things, that's not for me. But like, I flew up there because it restores my faith. It's the people. I
Hmm.
love the people. I love talking to people. I love hearing their stories. It's why I
Yeah.
do this podcast. Um, the gear and all of that stuff's cool. Like, seeing all the things that are coming out, the innovations, being able to support small business is wonderful. But
Hmm.
I just love the positive energy. And you're absolutely
Definitely.
right. It's very restorative.
Oh, yeah, it's
Um,
like that's how I know it's time for me to get back on trail.
right.
Is when it just seems like negative clouds are everywhere. It's like, yep, I need my community now. It's time for me to go on a hike, or I need to go to AT days, or PCT days, or CDT days, or something.
Yeah. My wife always calls me out. She's like, "You're starting to get grumpy. It's time to pack the tent up." And, she's like, "You need to
Oh
take a
yeah.
few days, come back, restore yourself and come
Oh,
back." So,
definitely. It's like my better half says the same. She's also a triple crowner, so she knows. It's like,
right.
yep, you need to get out there.
Yeah. Yeah, she knows that that's like my medicine.
Oh
That's
yeah.
what I need. So as we kind of, start to wrap this up, what does the future hold for you? What do you see in the next year, 5 years, 10 years? What's going to happen for Akuna?
I'm hoping in within the next year to be relocating to the Pacific Northwest. You know,
Okay.
I, something I've thought about since the first time I ever hiked through Oregon. I mean, the Pacific Northwest is beautiful. There's more
Hmm.
trails and more things for me to explore there versus being down here in the South as a long distance hiker. And
Right.
eventually, I'd like to buy some acres of land close to the PCT, build my homestead, and start providing more services for long distance hikers. I mean, a lot of the last few years of my career has been about trying to give more back to this community.
That's really interesting. My wife is not a hiker, but enjoys the community aspect of it.
Hmm.
And she has talked before about like a retirement plan would
Yeah.
be building a, homestead or home near the trail so I
Hmm.
can hike. And her love language is food. And she's like, she just wants to cook for through hikers and be a trail angel full
Oh,
time in
nice.
retirement, you know.
And it's what it's going to take to keep this community, what it is, the positive energy is going to take us, you know, being the trail angels, and being those guides for the new people coming in and out, because every year more hikers are coming on these long distance trails and they have to learn from someone. And a lot of the times, their introduction to long distance hiking, especially the last 2 years, are the quote unquote bad butts. I
Right,
gotta go hike 40 miles a day and I gotta act tough and hard, but you don't have to be that. You
right.
can be the hiker that hikes 15 miles and just has a very, very good time. The one that just spreads good energy to everyone around them. So that's part of the reason why we wanted to do this in Oregon area is to be there to help foster the next generation of long distance hikers, make sure they start off on the right foot.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, when I started getting involved in this community, I felt like a bit of an imposter because I wasn't the guy walking 2,000 miles and able to take six
Hmm.
months off of work and all of that. But then realized very quickly that I was the only person who thought that.
Yeah.
Um, and Derek, our mutual friend, actually kind of called me out a little bit. He's like, "You're almost like apologetic for not having walked 2,000 miles. That's ridiculous." And I was like,
Nah,
"Yeah, I felt like I had that imposter syndrome, but really none of that matters. Just
yeah.
getting out on the trail, looking out for people, maybe some trail maintenance. It doesn't matter if you're on a
Yeah.
2,000 mile hike or a 20-mile hike."
I've had this same conversation with Andy, Andy Films and Hikes.
Oh,
He
yeah.
was at PCT Days a couple of years ago, and he's like, I feel like I'm don't belong here. I'm not in the right place. It's like, dude, you're part of the family. I just because you don't hike 2,000 miles in a season doesn't make you less than. You're a part of us.
Well, yeah, big shout out to Andy Neal. I'm a big fan of his, and
Oh yeah, love
um,
Andy, love Andy.
yeah, I happened to coincidentally find him online the week that the Hiker podcast that he did came out. It's years ago now,
Oh
and
yeah.
we've stayed in touch. And yeah, just a good guy doing good things. So I'm glad to
I
hear that
mean, doing
you've met
such
him.
great
And
things. If y'all need a shot at some positive energy without hiding the frustrations of lives, yo, go see Andy Neal.
yep,
Definitely.
yep, big fan. Well, yeah, as we kind of wrap this up, I've got three questions I'd like to ask you. What's some advice you would give your younger self?
My younger self, it would be something I tell people now. It's like, don't let anybody steal your joy. Protect your joy. If you want to do something, don't let people talk you out of it. Don't let people, alter your mood, alter your decisions. Just find your joy and stick with it.
I love that. And then, secondly, what does success mean to you, and how do you think the definition of that word has changed for you throughout your life?
Success for me isn't exactly completing a goal. Like sometimes people on long distance hikes go out and they say, "Hey, I didn't make it to the end. It was a failure." For me, it's did you enjoy your time and did you put yourself into it? If you can say yes to those questions, it was a success. If you learned something from that time, it's a bonus.
I love that. That's a very good way of a good perspective on the world. I like that. Um, and then finally, if you could hike 10 miles with anyone in the world, it could be somebody in your life, somebody famous, somebody with us, somebody not with us, 10 miles, anyone from history, who would it be?
I think this is gonna mess some people up, but I think I would hike with Woody Harrelson. I feel like there would be stories for days and there would be so many things that were comical, but I also feel like there would be so many things that would be educational. He just seems like a very well-rounded person. So I would love to hike with Woody Harrelson.
Absolutely. And I love that if we gave listeners 1,000 guesses, nobody would have guessed that. That's awesome. Well, if people want to follow you online, ask you questions, find out more about you, where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram on Akuna Hikes. You can go to my website, which is akunahikes.com. reach out. I love to talk. And if you have any questions, you're trying to get in the outdoor community or PTSD things, please hit me up.
Awesome, man. Well, Akuna, we really appreciate your time. We look forward to seeing, you out on the trail in the fall, following you on Instagram, and seeing what adventures you're up to next.
All right, now, man, I appreciate you for having me, fam.
Absolutely, brother. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank you again to this week's guest, and I hope today's episode was as enjoyable for you as it was for me, and perhaps even inspired your next adventure. If you did enjoy the show, please be sure to subscribe, leave a review, or follow us wherever you get your podcasts. You can find more information at theoutdoorseyeducator.com or follow us on Instagram, TikTok, or Facebook. Until next time, thank you so much for listening to the Outdoorsy Educator Podcast.